Hey, good morning from downtown Fort Lauderdale, one of our world-famous intersections here, Los Olas Boulevard and Southeast 3rd, right just north of the bridge. And it is a spectacular morning here in downtown Fort Lauderdale. We have got a great crowd out here. We've got hundreds of volunteers, as you can see, all out here to help paint the intersection, focusing on connecting the blocks. This is our effort to connect all the downtown city blocks, bring the community together, build community, and put a little focus on making sure we can all safely enjoy these intersections. The pedestrians, the cyclists, the cars, everybody has to be able to safely enjoy these intersections. And this type of project with painting these intersections and connecting the blocks brings awareness to vehicular safety, pedestrian safety, cyclist safety. So it is an awesome day here in Fort Lauderdale. We're darn excited about everything. And I don't know if there's a city in America that has a greater volunteer spirit. You look at all the volunteers behind me out here painting, working hard, having fun, doing a little dancing. Just a great morning. It makes you awful proud to be mayor of a city that has this kind of volunteer spirit, this kind of commitment to service. And as you see this intersection get completed, make sure you focus on traffic awareness too. We want to make sure all our pedestrians are safe here downtown. We want to make sure all of our cyclists are safe here in downtown. And we want to make sure all our motorists are safe. So working together, staying focused, paying attention, being aware. It's an awesome way to build community and to build a better Fort Lauderdale. Best place to live, work, play, and raise a family.
Thanks so much for listening. If you're listening to us for the first time, please subscribe to this podcast. We have amazing people on here, and we do have an amazing politician. He's a former politician, I should say, the former mayor of Fort Lauderdale and former State House Representative Jack Seiler. Jack, thanks so much for coming on today and talking to us about Florida politics in general.
I tell you, it's great to be with you, and thanks for having me.
You're out of politics. Are you happy you're out?
No, I served 25 consecutive years. People forget that. And so I was fortunate enough to get elected and then reelected and served in local government, served in state government, and then came back and did 3 terms as mayor of Fort Lauderdale. So no, I'm not happy I'm out, but term limits serve their purpose. And term limits took me out of the Florida House of Representatives, which enabled me to run for the mayor of Fort Lauderdale. And then after 3 terms as mayor of Fort Lauderdale, term limits kind of pushed me out there, and I became chairman and president of the Orange Bowl. And so I just finished up that commitment to the Orange Bowl, where, that opened up a whole new avenue of activity for me, and certainly was entertaining and rewarding. So, every time a door closes, another door seems to open. So I've been very blessed and very fortunate.
Can you talk about just how politics has changed since 2018 in the state of Florida, but even in general?
Well, certainly, and I'll tell you, I'll even go back further, because when I first got involved in public office,
Right.
Lawton Childs was governor. So to give you an idea of, and Lawton was a very moderate Democrat, I guess what we'd call an old-fashioned sort of Southern Democrat. Wonderful guy to work with, wonderful guy to serve with. Got very close with him. In fact, I was at his funeral, and that's first time I met Governor Christ was at Lawton Child's funeral. But then following Lawton was Jeb Bush, and again, a wonderful guy, great family legacy, and very much a policy wonk. And
Right.
People would say, hey, you would criticize, and it's not a criticism. If Jeb was on this show, he'd tell you I'm a policy wonk. He very much loved public policy and loved a good debate on that. And so serving with Lawton and then serving with Jeb, it was a different time in Florida politics. And then Jeb was followed by Charlie Crist, who I had a great working relationship with. I thought, wonderful guy. In fact, to this day, I say he's the best retail politician I ever met. And then it just slowly kind of, I think the Republican Party moved further right. I think the Democratic Party moved further left. And now we've got this void because, Rick Scott served 2 terms as governor, but he was not a guy that dealt with the media. He was not a guy that enjoyed dealing with the public, right? It was a different day and age. And now you got Governor DeSantis. And
again, he'd rather go directly to his constituency than deal with the media or deal with the public at large. And so I think the days of Lawton and Jeb Bush and Charlie Crist, where they wanted to get something done, they went directly to the public. Those days are kind of gone. And I think we've become where I think the 15% on the left and the 15% of the right seem to be, taking all the oxygen in the room and really changing the game, if you will.
How do we get back to basics? I know Charlie's running a great race. He looks like he's probably going to be the nominee for the Democratic Party. And like you said, he's a great politician. I know Anna just came out and endorsed him. But, is he the hope, I guess, for the Democratic Party to maybe at least moderate things and get, some policies back for the people?
Well, and you're right about that. That's, in fact, when we were in the legislature, we used to call Polk County Imperial Polk County.
There's a lot of characters down there.
They had their own brand of politics. A lot of good friends there. A lot of people I served with that I have a lot of respect for and admiration. Right. But we used to joke it was Imperial Polk County, and Tallahassee doesn't tell them what to do. But no, I really think the media needs to play a bigger role, and that's not just the papers. It's not just the television, but it's these podcasts. The people need to get their information from a source. They need to get it from information from the source that they trust. And I think we've gotten away from this. It's gotten now where it is so filtered and so, if you turn on your TV, you're going to turn it on to a channel that you like their news spin. And someone else turns theirs on and it's, they like their news spin. And so all you do is keep reaffirming your thoughts instead of opening your mind. And you're right about what's happening around the state. I mean, we're destroying our middle class, and that is a thing that has always been a problem of mine. I mean, when I was as a mayor, as a state representative, I always believed that our working class, our middle class, was the future of our prosperity. Right? I mean, prosperity is not the 3 to 5% at the top. The prosperity is that working class, that middle class. And if somebody wanted to work hard, they could, be successful. They could raise themselves up. They could raise their families up. And we've lost that. And that's where I think, though, that we need more information. I sometimes feel like this governor, he's preaching to a 10% or 15%, right? And the message, we've got to get back where our papers are stronger, our editorial boards are stronger. I mean, what happened to the editorial board being the conscience of a community, talking about a minimum wage, talking about a working wage, talking about, workforce housing, those issues, right? That debate doesn't take place. One of the biggest crimes taking place in Tallahassee is these trust fund sweeps. When all of a sudden you have affordable housing trust funds, which have hundreds of millions of dollars available for that working family, and that affordable housing trust fund is swept in order to balance some other part of the budget or give a tax break. And we've got to get back to where, like I said, I think back to the mainstream, back to Main Street. And I believe that's going to require the media to be more assertive. I think we've got to, and maybe it's, like I said, maybe it's what you're doing here, that, you're getting the message out, you're communicating with the public, and people are understanding, hey, there's more to the spin that I'm going to get in a 2-minute soundbite coming from Tallahassee or coming from Washington.
Well, again, for people that are listening, Jack Seiler here on Fire Breathing Rob. My question is, Jack, is when the governor went after Disney with the Don't Say Gay bill and also the Reedy Creek issue, which is going to hurt a lot of people in Central Florida because Disney puts a lot of that tax revenue into that. We're going to see people in Osceola County and Orange County, their taxes are going to go up due to this Reedy Creek issue, which I don't know what the governor is doing there. Maybe because they're Democratic counties, he doesn't think they're going to vote for him in the election. But Disney has donated a lot of money, and you can go into open secrets, and I'm sure you saw this when you were in the state legislature. They donate a lot of money to the Republican Party. of Florida and 2 Republican representatives, obviously, because they're the majority party in Tallahassee. Why would the governor be going after Disney? Is this just this woke politics play that he's trying to do for president of the United States when he probably runs? Let's be realistic.
Well, let's be realistic. One, he's not probably running; he is running, and this is part of his election campaign. It's starting 2 years early. It's starting now, and it's look, Disney's, that's apple pie, that's baseball. That's the best of America, right? And to me, that was a little bit of a knee-jerk reaction by the governor. I think he was upset about this debate. He was trying to make sure he framed the issue, and he was trying to make sure he controlled that debate. And so he did, all of a sudden, all anybody could talk about was that bill, that legislation. All anybody could talk about was Disney. And a lot of other things were going on, including affordable housing, including water, including environmental issues, including sea level rise. And that, again, got no attention. So I think what he did, he knew what he was doing. Look, the governor, he's a very bright guy. He is a very politically astute guy. And I think he understood that, look, I do this for a week, 10 days. These other issues leave the front page. These other issues leave the 6 o'clock news lead-in. And all of a sudden, all anybody's talking about is Disney World and the Don't Say Gay bill and, the governor's position on this. And a lot of serious public policy was ignored. A lot of serious public policy was left on the legislative shelf. And the other thing that just stunned me was even this week with the budget cuts. There were $3 billion in budget cuts, and you were talking about Republicans. I bet you if you were to look at the vast majority of those budget cuts were Republican-sponsored initiatives, Republican-sponsored projects, and there's a message that he has for the state of Florida and for this nation, and he is running for president. And I don't think it doesn't matter who's in his way, whether Democrat, Republican, whether a 4-county area around Disney World, whether something as American as Disney World's in the way. He's going to do what he's going to do. And look, I actually have gotten along with the governor on some issues. I've disagreed with the governor on some issues. I'm not one of these that I never believe in attacking the person. I believe you attack the policy. I don't believe you attack the individual. You attack the idea. And I've had those debates going back on both sides of the aisle. But I got to tell you, this idea, what he did, where he elevated this to this me versus Disney, it took all the other issues off the table. And I bet you if you go back into a legislative wrap up and look at the 2 weeks of issues we missed debating, we missed discussing, we missed opportunities for our working families, we missed opportunities for our children, for our youth. Those missed opportunities got no attention because of that battle going on between Disney and DeSantis.
What is your assessment about the Democratic Party in Florida? Because 2020 was supposed to be the year that we picked up 2 or 3 Senate seats where it would be a lot closer. Obviously, Central Florida with the ghost candidate, which is being still investigated, and a lot of things are coming out where the people in the Republican Party were really screwing around in those elections. But do you have hope for the Florida Democratic Party that there are more people than, people in Central Florida and South Florida that are on the rise?
Well, first of all, Father Fire Breathing Rob, I got to say one thing. What happened with those elections need to be prosecuted.
Agreed.
What they did in Seminole County, what they did in Dade County, you cannot let that happen. I mean, several seats were stolen. They were outright stolen. Those were crimes, and those need to be prosecuted. You've got a senator in Miami-Dade County who should be in office, but is not because of that. You've got the same situation up in Central Florida. So first and foremost, that needs to be I don't care what party you are. It's ironic to me that we talk about all these election reforms, election police, election security force, and the only cases on record right now are Republican Party operatives, right? And so I'm saying we have this huge debate and we talk about this so-called need for election reform, but yet the party in power is the only party that has documented cases of this type of corruption. So that I just wanted to touch on before we talk about our party, because my belief is regardless of party affiliation. And those were Democrats that stole elections. I would be saying we need to prosecute them. That is a necessity. Going to our party, you know, one of my biggest concerns about our party has been the fact that we have gone too far left to try to fire up this extreme base. We've gone too far left. And there are some really good elected officials around the state. I mean, obviously, I'm Charlie Crist is a good friend and a good candidate. Nikki Fried, I had a chance to spend some time with her a couple weeks ago. Another good friend, good candidate. And, you know, these are people that are good public servants. They understand what it means to serve and to try to make things better for people. But, and you know, your friend Anna, she's done a nice job up there. My thing, though, is as a party, we have got to go to the middle. You know, the last year, we took a lot of seats in the legislature, and you can document this. 2006, Dan Gelber was incoming minority leader. I was the ranking member on policy and budget. Dan and I ran the campaigns that year. We picked up 8 seats. 8 seats, because we went out and got moderate candidates to try to move to the middle, move the party to the middle. And because they're, in my opinion, 70% of Floridians are in this middle area. You got a 15% far right and a 15% far left. And right now, you know, when you have a primary, people run to that 15% and 15%, and they get out of a primary. And then now the 70% in the middle got to say, I got to pick my lesser of two evils, either an extreme liberal or an extreme radical right? I mean, there's no middle anymore. And so I think we as a party need to claim that middle. I think we need to claim the middle on policy type discussions. We need to claim the middle on, you know, I mean, we focus on education, you focus on housing, you focus on healthcare. You know, you gotta focus on those issues. I think we have to stay away from the more extreme issues, because I think we have to take the middle, and I think we got to hold the middle. Because look, I talk to so many people that say, you know, God, I'd love to vote Democrat, but that defund the police thing, right? I mean, look, I spent 11 elections endorsed by the PBA, 11 elections endorsed by the Fraternal Order of Police. You know what? If we don't have law and order in our society, we don't have society. So we need to make sure we're not perceived as anti-law enforcement. We're not perceived as anti-corporate. You know, another example, there are corporations that do great things. I mean, I can name 10 companies in Broward that lead the way, being recognized as great places to work with, you know, minimum wages and great health care and great, you know, family leave and things that are done the right way. I'm not an anti-corporate Democrat. I'm not an anti-law enforcement Democrat.
Well, Jack, the problem is, and I hate to go back into Polk County, but there is a difference, I know, between Broward and Polk, of course. But in Polk County this year, there's Josie Tomko, who's my state representative. She's a big ag person, obviously, Polk County. No one is running against her in the Democratic Party. There's a lot of, obviously, it's a Republican seat. It's a tough race for a Democrat in Polk County. But we need to run people in these seats, because you might not win this year, but you build up the party in this area, and then you run somebody the next time. I got to give Andrew Gillum credit. What he was saying in 2018 was we have to go to every area of Florida, from the Panhandle to South Florida, and campaign for Democrats up and down the ballot. Yes, we're not going to win all these elections, but that's my problem. I don't know if that's just the Polk County thing, but I assume there's other counties in the state of Florida where there's no Democrats running for these House and state Senate seats.
Well, that's not an issue down our way, obviously. It's
right.
quite the opposite. But I think where you got to be careful here, and this is an interesting debate, because where you got to be really careful is you want to have candidates, but you don't want extreme candidates. You don't want
of course.
You don't want a Don Quixote candidate, because it ends up painting the party, right? And so let's say you don't get a moderate Democrat out of Polk County to run. You get some extreme, just throw somebody in the race. Now all of a sudden, what's the dialogue? How is this campaign framed? Well, you got this crazy person running here as a Democrat. So is this the Democratic Party of the future versus, you know, fire-breathing Rob as the moderate? So you have to be careful. I'm all for getting candidates in every race, because I do think it also shapes the debate. But I don't want the candidate to be one that, if they were to win, or if they were to receive publicity, or if they were to receive media coverage, we're not squirming in our seats going, geez, I don't want him or her to be the representative of our Florida Democratic Party. And that's where it's a balancing act, because if we get somebody in every race that is a good representative, great. I don't want somebody to say, well, we ran against, Kathy Smith, so we could run a Democrat, and that Democrat is somebody that is used negatively against the Democratic Party. And that's where I think, that might be a Polk County issue, that unless you're going to find a viable candidate, then it's tough. I'll give you a good example of this. Charlie Crist ran, many years ago against Bob Graham. I think he got 38% of the voters. Right? He ran statewide. He got his name out there. He became well known. But he formed a great network in running and losing. But that's because Charlie, as I said before, is a great retail politician. He knew how to conduct himself in that campaign. He knew how to be even though he wasn't going to win, he had great name recognition. He came back, and then next thing you know, he's serving statewide. We need candidates that are of the Charlie Crist type that, hey, maybe they're not going to win, but they're going to maintain a great image. They're going to hold them, win or lose. They're going to conduct themselves in a manner in which somebody says, that's a great future public servant. That's a great future elected office holder. So that's where I probably disagree with the viewpoint we have to get somebody in every race, because I don't want to be getting a phone call from somebody saying, or going on your podcast going, hey, Jack, this woman running in Polk County as a Democrat believes that, there should be no police. Is this the Democratic Party? No, it's not, right? But I don't want to have to defend those.
Well, no, I see what you're saying, because I know they do that quite often with AOC on Fox News and One America and all these stations. So I definitely understand that. And I think we do have to get away from this woke politics. We need to talk about the kitchen table and issues. Gas, rent, and it's so funny, and I'll move on to the next question with this, is that the governor is going to suspend the gas tax in October, the month before the election. It's only going to be a 1-month deal. I mean, it's just a joke what's going up in Tallahassee right now. In October, give me a break. People are suffering right now, and they're not doing a damn thing up in Tallahassee. It's a total scam and a joke what's going on in Tallahassee right now, but
no, you got too much politics going on and not enough public policy. And there's a big difference with that. We used to, Dan Gelber and I, when we served, we'd always have this discussion. We would say, look, good politics rarely makes for good public policy. Truthfully. I mean, and we're seeing a lot of good politics right now coming out of Tallahassee. And we saw it for 4 years coming out of Washington. But good politics rarely makes for good public policy. It elevates the politicians. It doesn't elevate the people. Good public policy oftentimes doesn't make for great politics, but in the long run, it elevates the people. It elevates all of us. And I think that's what we're seeing coming out of Washington, D.C. is an attempt at good public policy. It may take longer. It may be more difficult. It doesn't have the 20-second sound bites that you can go on your local or on your favorite TV show and do your 20-second soundbite that if you had to give 2 minutes, you couldn't possibly repeat unless you repeat yourself 6 times. You're not filling the 2 minutes. But I think we as, I should say all of our public servants need to start focusing on public policy. If the gas tax reduction makes sense, let's do it this summer. If it's going to help bring tourists to Florida, let's do it this summer. If it's going to help our workers get to and from work and help people, summer jobs. Let's do it this summer. Why are we waiting to do it at a time, our slowest tourism month, October? I'm not sure where that benefits anybody.
Oh, it benefits the governor because the gas will go down 20, 30 cents and he'll look like a hero. And people, unfortunately, are, watching the silliness on TV and saying, oh, the gas went down 30 cents and then the governor's going to run around the state because he does 100 press conferences a month.
Yeah, no, again, I think we need to focus more on public policy. I mean, look, Jeb and I had some wonderful debates. We really did. I mean, I very much respect the guy. I admire the guy, admire his family. But he was a policy wonk. He would absolutely want to go toe-to-toe and tell me why this is not good public policy. Tell me why this is not a good idea. We're not getting that type of honest debate anymore. We're not getting that type of dialogue and discourse. We're getting, look, I'm going to go on my TV show and talk for 20 seconds and tell everybody what I would say to you if I was in a room with you. And you go on your TV show and talk for 20 seconds and tell everybody what you would have said to me in the room. And then we had never actually talked to each other. We just talked to our bases.
Right. I want to hit on this issue because this is a big issue before we do some quick audience questions moving toward the end of the interview, Jack. My question is, you just saw this down in South Florida. I lived it too in my 7 years being down there, doing my master's over there at Lynn and stuff. Climate change is a huge issue for the state of Florida in general, but especially South Florida. We saw the flooding all over social media, all over the TV with the tropical storm that just was down there. Manatees are dying all over the state. We see that the red, blue-green algae, I remember that was a big hot topic in 2018 with the governor's race, but the red tide is out of control in, during certain months of the year. What is your, kind of synopsis of climate change? I'm sure people all over the streets of Fort Lauderdale, Broward and Miami-Dade are talking to you about these issues. How can we solve this when we have total dysfunction in Tallahassee, not to mention Washington, D.C.?
Well, one, you're 100% right. I mean, and sadly, this whole thing about, we're just going to ignore sea level rise, ignore climate change, ignore these impacts on our environment and on our lives. I mean, truthfully, on our lives. And, one, you don't want to go put your head in the sand because it's simply the wrong thing to do. Now you don't want to put your head in the sand because you're going to be underwater in a couple of weeks anyway if you put your head in the sand. So it's a situation where, this is an issue that, again, has to move to the forefront. We have a group here in Broward County called the Broward Workshop that I'm active with. It's business leaders. We're now talking climate change. We're talking sea level rise. We've got the chamber talking climate change and sea level rise. It's got to move to that level of discussion. It can't be, okay, just the left's talking about it. It's got to be, look, this is impacting all of us, our lives, our families, our businesses. And I can't tell you how irresponsible it is for us to ignore this issue. This is going to be a defining issue of our generation. It's going to be a defining issue of our nation, because we have to understand that, look, I've got kids, I'll have grandkids, and I would hope that we leave a better Florida, a better America for them than we're saying, okay, well, you know what, to hell with high water, to hell with rising sea level, to hell with these adverse impacts on our marine life and marine, quality of life, if you will.
Sure. We
have got to focus on this, but we have to move this to a discussion beyond one party, beyond one environmental group. It's got to be, our society has to wake up. I tried to do this as mayor. I mean, one of the first things I did as mayor was we created an infrastructure task force that was dealing with climate. One of the first things we did was create task force on this. Look, when I did it in 2009, I thought I was, maybe even a little behind the time. Now, looking when I did it in 2009, I looked like I was some sort of, guy, that wizard that could see the future. I mean,
you were Nostradamus.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's crazy to me that, we haven't come further on this. But no, I look at the workshop, at the chamber. I'm active on both fronts pushing this issue, and knowing, look, there's a business solution to this too. There's not just a business impact. There's a business solution. So we need to work together and figure out how to come up with a better way to address climate change, rising sea level, and the other adverse environmental impacts from that.
I want to get into this as we move toward the audience questions and the end of the interview. You spoke about obviously being a mayor rather, for 8 years, being that mayor of Fort Lauderdale, beautiful city, for 8 years. What was your greatest achievement as mayor in your mind?
Well, I think one of the things was just, my opinion, setting a tone that, I got reelected 3 times. We never raised taxes, but we never left issues unfunded or issues unresolved. So I always felt good about the fact that I really think we did a lot for the middle class, for the working class, for the families. We more than a dozen parks were either created or expanded. We created parks on the barrier island before I left. I mean, those were, doing things, I think, for the families and the future generations. That meant a lot to me. Two of the projects that I'm most proud of are, one was the federal courthouse. We had a federal courthouse that really is outdated. And I was able to get my last day in office. We got the federal funding for a new federal courthouse. We're in the process now of building that. And, we're doing site plans now. And I'm stayed on to serve on that committee. And then the USS Fort Lauderdale. It was a Navy ship that was named in 2016. I'm now serving as vice chair of the fundraising for that committee. We're commissioning it this summer. And it was such an honor to be able to do something with our U.S. military, our U.S. Navy. That project started back in 2009 when a gentleman by the name of Chuck Black brought the idea and said, hey, we can get a ship named after Fort Lauderdale. And I was like, really? That seems like crazy, right? And we worked it. We worked it across the aisle. We worked it Democrats, Republicans, veterans, active military. We took, everybody from Alan West to Ron Klein to Clay Shaw to Debbie Wasserman Schultz to Mario Diaz-Balart to Ted Deutsch, all in support of this. And we were able to get the USS Fort Lauderdale 2016. The Navy named it when I was mayor. They called me when I was at City Hall. We were delayed one ship, and it's a great story. We were supposed to have the next naming, according to the Secretary of the Navy, and then they named the ship ahead of us for Gabby Giffords. And you remember Gabby was shot, and when we got the call saying that we were going to be delayed slightly, and they told me why, I said, you know what? That's City of Fort Lauderdale can certainly wait. That's Gabby Giffords and what she stood for. So important to, make sure that, again, focusing on families, focus on the safety and welfare of our students. We waited in 2016, it was announced. So that's another one of the projects I'm just very proud of. But I think that combination, the parks and recreation programs, everything we did was really a focus on the families.
I want to get into this question. The Democrats, it looks like it's going to be a tough year, 2022, for the Democratic Party. If we're going to both be honest with each other, inflation, whether it's the Democrats' fault or not, it's going to be a tough year. People blame the party in power. We saw what happened back in the last Democratic administration, back in 2010 with the Obama administration. They suffered deep losses on the state level and also congressionally. It looks like the Biden administration will probably face the same fate. If you were running, or if you were to give advice to a congressional candidate, Charlie Crist, whoever it may be, about how to run a good campaign in a year where we've seen high inflation, gas prices, rent, the list goes on and on, what would you tell these candidates that are running here in 2022?
Well, first of all, I'm talking to about a half dozen of them, so they are calling me and asking me on messaging and things of that nature. But no, I think we really have to focus on the issues. And I think we as a society are ready to come back to a discussion on the issues. And even we're just as guilty. I mean, I don't mean to say anything, but every time you open an email, it's, geez, fire breathing Rob is a jerk, or Jack Seiler's an idiot.
I agree.
You know what I'm saying? And this has got to stop. I mean,
yes.
Let's elevate ourselves by elevating the discussion. Let's elevate ourselves by focusing on 2, 3, 4 issues and talking about why we're more qualified or why we're better on these issues. I've not understood this mindset over the last decade that the only way I can elevate myself as a candidate is for me to knock down my opponent lower than me, rather than lifting myself up by having a debate. I mean, I look at these issues like on gun control. I mean, my God, I think, again, 70%, I believe, would probably say, let's have some background checks. Let's have some reasonable precautions in place, right? So let's pick 4 or 5 issues, depending on what state or what district you're in, and focus on those issues and don't get in the mud. I think we have so many good people don't even want to run anymore. I mean, I know some really strong Democrats told me, look, Jack, I don't even want to get in it these days. It is a contest to see who can make the other person look worse, not who can make our community better, who can make our society better. And so I would say, first and foremost, to candidates, talk about why you're a better candidate, not why they are a worse candidate. Talk about whether your ideas are in the long run better from a public policy standpoint, not why, the other side just keeps saying inane, stupid things, and I'm going to attack them. I'm going to attack them. So I do think we have to elevate that debate. We have to elevate that race. Secondly, like I said in Florida, I think, again, a focus on the families. Look, at the end of the day, you made a comment earlier during this interview, the kitchen table. You're 100% right. You're 100% right. What are mom and dad? What is mom, that single mother, talking about with her oldest son? What is that single father talking about with his daughter around that table in the morning? Hey, what are we going to be able to do this summer? What can I do after work? Am I having to work 2 jobs and I won't be there for you after school? Talk about issues that impact our families. Talk about issues that impact our day-to-day quality of life. Mm-hmm. These extreme issues, and you see it so often now, again, this Disney thing. Make this extreme issue so contested, so outrageous, so, such a hot button issue that no one's talking about the issues we need to be talking about. And now all of a sudden, when the election time comes, who's framing the issues? The person that just got us off on a tangent then says, I can frame my opponent because my opponent never got any airtime, right? I can frame the issues around my opponent because of that. So I do think we've got to move back to the basics. I think we have to focus on family issues. I think we have to focus on jobs, job creation, education, healthcare, housing. I don't want to hear another discussion about don't say gay. I don't want to hear another discussion about, even the abortion thing. It's, you talk about this Supreme Court thing, right? I mean, it's a difficult issue. I mean, to me, this is a healthcare issue. This is between a woman and her doctor, right? Let's get it back to where it's a healthcare issue. Let's not get it where we're yelling at 5 Supreme Court justices. Let's talk about healthcare. Let's talk, at the end of the day, I shouldn't be telling a woman what to do with her body and her health care. I don't want her telling me what to do with my body and my health care. And I think we've got to focus on breaking these issues back down to the basics. Healthcare, housing, jobs, education.
If we were in a society where we took care of our people, that they could work a minimum wage job, be able to have a house or an apartment, be able to go on a vacation once in a while, have decent health care, then I think we would not have all this violence. But with everything going on, people are on edge. People may be teetering the edge, so they're going to go and do crazy, whacked out things. Do you agree with that statement?
No, respectfully, no, only because I think what we're seeing with this violence is I think we are seeing a mental health issue. And this is why when you're talking about, gun reform and I mean, first and foremost, if there's a member of Congress that doesn't believe that we need to be looking at the mental health of people buying guns,
right,
they're putting their head in the sand, right? I mean, regardless of whether you think I got a right to a automatic versus a single shot or a double shot, if you're not focused on what is the mental health of people that we are allowing to buy guns, and how can we as a society say, we know this person has had mental health issues. We know this person has anger management issues. We know this person has maybe some of these stress issues triggered by what you're talking about. I mean, it's not unrelated, but we know that this person is not a fit person to be a gun owner.
Agreed.
And yet we're not going to require a background check. We're not going to require a cooling off period. We're not going to require somebody to say, hey, that to me is the first miss in this mindset, right? Is that we are not looking at the mental health, recognizing that there are both short-term and long-term mental health issues, some created by the issues you brought up earlier in the question, but short-term and long-term mental health issues that should prohibit somebody from owning a gun, should prohibit somebody from having access to a gun. The second issue is, what are we doing after that in terms of, we do have a society that has just, there's an anger level that I haven't seen in decades. There is a stress level I haven't seen in decades. So, to your point earlier, when I look at some of these shooters, I look at the gentleman down here who shot up Marjorie Stoneman Douglas when I was mayor. I look at the guy that shot up at the airport when I was mayor. I mean, these are criminal acts. These are horrific criminal acts. These individuals should never have been able to own a gun. And if they ever own a gun and commit a crime, they should never, ever be out again. I mean, we as a society have got to start focusing on, like I said, the mental health aspect, and also on law enforcement, criminal enforcement. We have too many guns on the street. We have too many guns on the street. We don't even know who owns them. We don't know who they're registered to. We don't know, So I saw it as mayor. I have a police department with 524 officers. I never wanted my officers to be outgunned on the streets of Fort Lauderdale, right? But sadly, there were times when that was the case. And you're going, wait a minute, what's going on? So, this to me starts with mental health. This then goes to law enforcement, strict enforcement. And I have no problems with gun ownership. I'm probably I think I'm probably middle of the road on this. I mean, we have guns in our house. My adult children, my son has guns. My dad had guns. I don't think I need assault weapons. I don't think I need any guns of mass destruction, but certainly, a shotgun to hunt or a pistol for protection. I don't see any harm in that. But again, I don't have any problem if somebody says, Jack, before you own that shotgun, what's your mental health status? What's your, what's your ability to handle this? What's your ability to understand how it operates and the safety of that? I am a huge believer we have to put reasonable regulations in place with respect to this. If we don't, we're going to have even more of a problem on our hands. I mean, look at last weekend. Every day I'm reading about another shooting, another mass shooting. I mean, this is crazy.
And the police do have to worry about ghost guns, the 3D printing now, which is a big issue. That's going to be, it's an issue now, but it's going to get worse with these 3D printing guns. So, and I just want to push back a little. I agree with you 100% on the background checks. We're never going to get all these guns off the street that are already on the street, whether they do have the buybacks and stuff like that. But I just believe, and, I don't know if you're agreeing with me on this or not, or maybe I'm misconstruing, is that we as a society, as a government, U.S. government, a state government, are not taking care of our people. And it does go into the mental health. But I believe, again, if we do take care of our people, these rates of, and there is other things, mental health, video games, a family life in general. But I believe some of that stuff goes away when you do take care of the family, when people do have, they can live on minimum wage jobs, when they do have health care, when they can afford groceries and rent and stuff. And that mental health thing goes kind of down to the ground. You're still going to have issues. Every country has issues. But if we take care of the people, then those issues will be, a lot minor. Plus, we got to talk about coronavirus, monkeypox now. All this stuff is playing into, I believe, the rise in violence, distrust in government, vaccine mandates, all this stuff that's going on. We've had fighting between Biden and Trump and who's right and who's wrong. And it goes into that political gobbledygook that you brought up, is why a lot of your people that you're friends with don't want to run for office, because it's just a brain drain in plain English.
Yeah. Well, but just to push back on that one issue, let's look at who the assailants are. Read up on these most recently. I'd love to say that these were all somehow victims of society. They're not. Most of these assailants we're reading about, these are angry men, and mostly angry white men, truthfully, with mental health problems. And I'm very clear. I don't like the victimization of these assailants. They are not victims of society. We can do better, and we should do better. We need to identify them sooner. We need to get them off the streets, but if we don't get them off the streets, we need to get the guns out of their hands. We should never, ever have a situation where somebody that we know is mentally unstable has weapons of either destruction or mass destruction. So I do think that yeah, those issues you talk about, they create tension, they create stress. But I'm not going to make an excuse for any of these assailants who, in my opinion, are not victims. My opinion are that, you know, we slipped as a society because we let some of these fall through the cracks. But at the end of the day, we need to make sure that we don't give them opportunities to commit these type of crimes.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I wasn't trying to, you know, victimize these people and say that they're martyrs or anything. But, you know, we do have to try to get to some of these kids or these young white men or young men in general, whether it's, you know, police programs. You know, I've talked about this with police, is getting police in these neighborhoods where there's a lot of shootings and these rough neighborhoods, and, you know, trying to have that on the ground relationship with, you know, people and try to get them, you know, to accept the police more so than find them as enemies.
Well, Rob, you're right about that. I mean, you're 100% right on that. I spent 9 years pushing police programs where we would do, you know, whether it be youth activities, youth events, youth sports. I mean, so many of these police officers are good role models, men and women, good mentors, men and women. And they do have to be out in the community and let the community know, hey, we're not your enemy. We're here to help you, to lift you up, to bring you along. And you're 100% right. We do need more community policing, but we also need the community activities of the police, not necessarily tied to policing.
Right. I agree with you 100%. So let's end with this question. Do you see yourself running for office again? Maybe it's not anytime soon, but down the road.
Absolutely. I think I probably have one more public office. You know, people, again, you know, 25 years, I was fortunate enough, as I said, to have 11 elections. I won 11 elections in a row, did 25 straight years in office. And but for term limits, I would have never left office.
Right. And
I'm glad I did for my wife. You know, I've been married 32 years and my 4 kids, and got them from 24, 26, 28, and 30. I'm glad I did leave office to get some more quality time with them. Yeah. But I do think, my wife and I were talking about it, I think I'll probably, the right opportunity comes up, I'll probably jump back in. And, you know, I do think I can make a difference. Yeah. I look at the elections today, I look at the campaigns today, and I'm like, look, this is not a way, you know, I in my 11 elections, you can go back, check the video, check the TV, check the radio, check the audio, check the campaigns. I never mentioned my opponents by name.
Wow.
11 times. I always said, you know, my opponent, my colleague, I just never mentioned them by names. I didn't ever put an ad out that ever talked about them. I thought, hey, the only way I can win by attacking my opponent or lowering my opponent, I don't want public office.
We need more people like you, John, whether it's to run for Congress, governor, you know, U.S. Senate, depending on what goes on. I mean, we need somebody to run against Rick Scott for sure. In 2024, I know 2022 is Val Demings, and, you know, we hope that she has some luck against Marco Rubio, but we need more people that are, you know, willing to work with the other side, especially in the state of Florida. I mean, it's just kind of disgusting, like I said, up in Tallahassee. And whether Governor Chris reclaims the governor's mansion or not, you know, I hope to see you running for something statewide down the road. You definitely have my support, and I've heard a lot of good things while I was at Lynn University about you also, John. So I appreciate you.
Well, thank you. And listen, I just have to ask, please tell me what lake in Polk County is that large that's behind you with that much blue water? Because I've spent a lot of time in Imperial Polk County, and most lakes I saw, I could see the other side of the lake